Hello. I know. The hair. It's fucking weird, right? Whatever. I'll only explain it if I get enough questions about it. Let's see here. Send the link to people. Rub-a-bum-bum. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. No questions about it. Do 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 do. All right. I think links out. There's Xavier.
Yeah, what's up?
What's up?
I can't believe you only made it a minute into her video, or a minute 45.
I looked at it and I'm like, okay, there's only one way I'm going to get through this video, and that's if I watch with other people.
Alcohol won't even save you at this point? Like, you just need it.
How far have I gotten? So I've gotten to 2 minutes 43 seconds in her video before I was just like, fuck, I need a drink or company. One of the two. This is just really silly. And, you know, it's not that trying to have a conversation with Gary Edwards, because at the very least he knows what he's talking about. It's not like having a conversation with him isn't difficult for your average person to do. But
this is Bionic Dance.
She needs to know her fucking limits, okay? If she's can't even get down what doxastic means, and here's the funny thing. I've been looking at Gary's video and the comment section in there, and she says shit in the comment section that is directly opposite of what she says in her fucking video.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Hi, by the way.
Hello.
Hello.
Part of the other reason why I made this is because you wanted to have a live chat because you're bored.
I did!
Wow, that was
loud. But I
loud.
didn't want to host it. Mostly because I am darning socks. And I wanted to participate in a live chat, but I didn't want to host a live chat. Because darning socks is more important than being a host of a show.
That is
Who do you think you are, Mr. Hitler?
Sammy, can I give you voice lessons? Because you need it.
I wasn't trying to be fucking, you know.
That was the greatest way to say you suck at singing ever.
Well, sorry.
Okay, I'll get drunk and sing for you guys one day. You'll be like, oh god, Sammy is a fucking musician, like, born with... like,
sing something for us.
Muse. No, I have to be drunk.
He'll do like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song or something.
Yeah, do a rap. Do a little jig.
I can't do
West
anything right now.
Philadelphia, born in caves.
Wow. Anywho, yeah, Bionic Dance.
West Philadelphia, born in caves?
Yeah, what? God damn it.
Born in cage.
Who all is in here? Fuck. Okay, so it's Abby and Xavier, Sammy, and myself. We'll just go with it for now. Okay,
Let's try to get Ryan in here.
The subject of this is that Gary Edwards, a fairly intelligent individual on YouTube, at least in my opinion, made a video defining atheism, blah, and Bionic Dance decided this was just an injustice that needed tended to. Because if there's any debate that she has to get herself involved in every single time it comes up, it's defining atheism.
Seriously, I have a question. Did he define atheism? And I'm not an atheist, okay? Let's be really real. I'm a guy. Okay, so did did he define atheism as anything more than a non-belief in God, like not believing in God?
Yeah, he
Kind
defined it
of.
as the assertion that,
Not really the
well,
assertion.
not the assertion, just you have a diaxastic attitude, which is like an attitude about belief.
Basically, you've
Yeah.
reasoned to the point in which you have you're accepting the notion that the probability of God's existence is less than 0.5 on a 0 to 1 probability scale.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it.
Not that you actively think there is no God, not that you actively think it's any one point on that probability scale, just that it's less than 0.5.
To put in simplistic words, as he described it in the comment section, pretty much he says, if someone asked him whether or not you believe in a God, he would simply say, probably not, just probably not.
So basically, what I'm saying is, what that sounds to me is a perfectly legitimate definition of atheism.
Yeah, that's what it sounds to me to be, too.
Yeah, but
But
Bionic
Bionic
Dance
Dance
doesn't want
has her
her.
knickers in a twist.
Yeah.
And Bionic Dance
She doesn't
probably,
want to have to defend anything because she's too
And-
fucking
and-
stupid to get her mind around like anything other than not having something is this.
she can't understand, nor can she lie, a definition of atheism as anything other than a non-belief in God. She wants it to be a very active, anti-religion, anti-God, anti-establishment thing. I'm not going to say thing because she is so cool that she has to say the word thing. She can't leave it alone. She must give herself her own definition that might even be against what the actual definition of atheism is. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, here's the thing. There are dictionaries out there that define atheism as the doctrine or belief that there is no God and stuff like that. And, you can argue about these
doctrine to some belief. There is a doctrine to some people's non-belief in God, in some people's atheism. There definitely is a doctrine. There is a doxology, even.
Mhm.
There is a religiosity to some people's non-belief in God, and I absolutely believe that some people even follow atheism as if it were a religion in the whole doctrinal definition of a religion. Not saying it is a religion, but very dogmatic about it.
Here's something that I did that I think that is just like sort of a slight jab at Bionic Dance. One of the tags that I put for this video is atheism and in parentheses religion. So I'm wondering if that'll come up at any point. But yeah, I like Gary's definition. It works just fine for me. It defines me perfectly, and it requires that someone actually has a pre-existing philosophy that got them to the position that rather than just anything at all can have this atheistic position, like rocks, babies, suns, fucking planets, asteroids.
Universe.
The rest of the fucking universe
agrees with me.
She actually says that in the video. She's like, the entire rest of the fucking universe.
Like,
yeah.
Every.
Like, stars are atheist, bro.
It's just.
And by the way, to Nordic guy and Smiling Skeptic, no, this is not about Atheists R Babies. This is just about the definition of atheism.
Well, it kind of is about Atheists R Babies because
babies are atheists.
Hold on, because she's literally said in the comment section of her video, yes, babies are atheists, and so are rocks. She is very adamant about this being a thing.
Yeah.
So this is actually a.
The problem with like all babies are atheists kind of argument is that atheism rather than agnosticism which I think she doesn't think is a thing. I don't think she thinks agnostics are.
Agnostics are atheists without like testicles.
Yeah,
Right.
pussies. They're the pussy.
Basically.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But that's the thing. Agnostics are basically some agnostics would be those people who would not want to make an argument for or against. They don't know, and that's a perfectly understandable way of being. And someone who is an atheist would definitely make a stand for or against or actually against, probably, obviously, if atheist, going by the word atheist, would be against the whole idea of God. Therefore, could not be agnostic. Therefore, you would have to make a stance against a God. Therefore, it can't be a rock or a baby.
So here's kind of my thing about this. I've seen this conversation play out so many times that I've like lost any desire to have the conversation myself as to what an atheist should be defined as. I stopped caring. Like, I know what I mean when I say I'm an atheist, and if other people don't understand, I'll explain it to them. What interests me here is that you have a person who knows what they're talking about, making a video on sort of the doxastic language of how to define a belief. And then you have somebody who clearly has no idea what they're talking about, who has actually said, we're going to have to agree that I'm going to kick your ass on this subject.
Yeah.
Holy shit, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect in its finest.
in full force. She just does not know what she's talking about and is freaking proud of that. It is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. She does not care. She really does not care that she doesn't know what she's talking about. And in fact, she takes pride in basically not knowing what she's talking about. She
probably thinks of... Oh, sorry.
No. Yeah, I was just going to say that she will completely, not only just own up to the fact that she has no real education in any sort of philosophical or religious argument. She loves that she has no argument or no basis in any sort of religious or scholarly argument in these sorts of topics. She doesn't care. She loves that she has no basis. She's never actually in real life dealt with anyone who's been religious, who has even been thoughtful about religion and has no experience and loves that she has no experience in any of these matters.
I've actually seen her in some debates with actual Christians who have some sort of knowledge as to it, who have the ability to argue their position in a semi-coherent way at the very least. She is embarrassing to watch. She really is. And I've had my own debates with her on stuff before, and I've debated her on stuff that I think is still up for grabs. But her method of attacking is always just the weakest, most silly manner of arguing ever. I think at one point I got her to basically say that logic, the language that we use to describe the universe around us and how it works in an objective sense, it's basically math, is in fact subjective. It's all up to opinion. She's literally said that.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. If you are, versed in mathematics, let's say you actually know mathematical theory and stuff, you can actually make a sound argument that would say mathematics is, that's what I'm saying, mathematics is subjective. But that's only if, and that's a huge if, right? There's a huge only if you have any sort of
I'm not gonna pretend that I'm some sort of mathematician here. I know Xavier knows a lot more than I do about it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, her argument was because these variables and the definitions for the terms that we use to describe things come from us, that's what makes it subjective.
Right, and I'm sorry if I'm going to step on Javier's toes, because there is a lot of really deep, okay, super deep philosophical ideas about mathematics that would possibly say, yes, there is some sort of debate on what is and what is not a number, right? What is and what is not 2 plus 2. But, okay, and this is my huge but. I have a gigantic but on this, okay? This is coming from someone who may know a little bit about mathematic philosophy, because there is mathematic philosophy, mathematic logic, and contention.
The logic of philosophy, or the philosophy of mathematics.
She and someone who has watched many a video on such a subject, she is not such a person, and she does not have the language of such persons. And if she did have the language of such persons, she would know that she does not have the knowledge of such persons to have a conversation about the subject.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
broach the subject.
partially.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I can do. Broach.
Sorry. I think part of what you're referring to is called logicism, which is the idea that mathematics can be boiled down in a meaningful way to basically just logic, which I don't know if anybody's tried to go for it recently, but Bertrand Russell made the argument in the Principia Mathematica, which is a 3-volume book on basically mathematics. He did an okay job. There were some problems, and not a lot of people are convinced, but essentially math is logic, like the way it works and everything. It's the language we use to describe anything now, basically, if that makes any sense. I'm really tired, so.
I mean, it's put in the most simplistic form possible, but it does make sense, and it does.
I'm trying to keep it simple because.
Absolutely, mathematics.
Please do so, because I suck at math.
Okay, here's the thing. I am good at math, but it's one of those things that I have other things that I much better excel at. So math is one of those things where I struggle at, but it's it's like one of those things you're good at, but you still have to try hard. You know what I mean?
Are you good at math or are you good at counting? Because math isn't numbers like everyone thinks.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
I mean, it uses numbers.
Right.
Oh, and also I think when you're talking about the definitions of numbers and things like that, there's several different ways you can define what a number is. The size of a set, for instance, is one way. And I can get deeper than that, but I would need a whiteboard or something.
No, that's actually
there's also
that's actually one of the things that I'm kind of trying to point at, is that people think mathematics are numbers. Mathematics are very concrete.
Yeah.
And if the further you get into mathematics, the more you understand that it's not as concrete as you would have otherwise thought. Not to say that it's not one of the more concrete studies we have, because let's face it, it is a lot more concrete than, say, what I am more averse in, which is music and acoustics. Okay, so it's much more concrete than music and acoustics. But
what do you mean by concrete? Because music theory is very robust, and I don't know. I would call music theory very concrete, even though music itself is at least taste in music is for the most part subjective.
Yeah, well, music theory is not terribly concrete in that, depending upon who you talk to and what culture you're in, it changes. So what I'm saying is this, as well as music, mathematics is a lot more concrete than music theory, because music theory is still based in mathematics. So if you base something that is in mathematics, which is not terribly concrete. So you're basing something that is not terribly concrete into something that's not terribly concrete. You've got something that's less concrete than something, you know. I'm not explaining myself well. I've drunk a lot of wine.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
But
What do you mean by concrete, though?
But what I'm saying is this. Okay.
No, I didn't mean that to be mean. I mean, she's just kind of...
You have such a blunt way of saying things sometimes, Asami.
No.
I don't think you understand.
It's very... Here's the thing.
I have, like, really bad PTSD, so, like, emotions are out the window and everything. Like, I just tell people shit.
That's fine.
Like, somebody could be like, oh, dude, how am I doing in the hospital? I'll just be like, nah, you're fucked. Sorry.
No, music theory is still based on mathematics, right? And when something is based on something that is not incredibly concrete, therefore it must be less concrete than the thing upon which it is based. Yes? No?
It depends what you mean by concrete. Do you mean, like, objective, or...
Or what?
I don't know what else it could be in the way you're using concrete.
Then lean itself to be more objective than the other.
Okay, well...
That terminology of more objective confuses the crap out of me.
Yeah, actually, objective might not be a good one either.
Objective is a very messy word to begin with, especially when the only other, like, opposing term we have for it is subjective. Those two don't encompass everything.
And it's one of the problems with language in and of itself, that
It's one of the things mathematics tries to solve.
It does, but it doesn't necessarily solve. It tries to solve it.
No, it doesn't. Not even very well.
The same with music theory. When you learn music theory, you learn a huge set of very specific, non-mutable set of rules. Rules that you cannot and should not ever break until you break them. And you find the proper ways to break them until you can break them any which way you want. Do you know what I mean? So that's basically how a lot of mathematics goes as well. You learn a set of rules you're not supposed to break until you are learning how to break them.
I think I know where you're getting at, like taking the square root of a negative number, that kind of thing. Like, you can't do it until you learn what I is.
Yeah, it's like basically mathematics as well as music theory is you're not supposed to break rules until you learn how to break rules.
Well, not really. It depends what you mean by break rules, too, because math has some rules you absolutely cannot break. Ever. Like, you can't violate equality, otherwise you get the wrong answer.
And then the thing is, too, music, it becomes, like, you just said there are rules you just cannot break. With music, you shouldn't break them, but there are always exceptions to the rule that you shouldn't break them until you want to break them and you have a good justification for breaking them, and then you can. Because fuck it. It's basically what it boils down to. Especially with academic music, and that's not even talking about popular music, because popular music rarely ever breaks the rule, like concrete rules, because it's what our ears are used to hearing. But when it comes to academic or artistic music, you break them because you want to break them. Because fuck it. That's what I want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't do that with math.
See, when you talk about rules that you absolutely cannot break in math, are you referring to more like the axioms that we use in math, or something entirely?
Yes, some things about set theory, like additions, just combining two disjoint sets. Those would be axioms. I'm trying to think of if there's any that would follow from axioms that you absolutely can't break. But...
Well, I think the equality thing that you stated earlier is kind of one of them.
Yeah, that's an axiom. Let's see. Oh, some of the proofs, I guess you could say, rely specifically on, say, we just limit ourselves to the normal or the real number plane rather than the complex number plane. The real number plane is basically just like a number line, like your shitty little number line. You get that in like grade school. Complex plane opens it up to like a whole bunch of clusterfuckage because it's taking basically like your two-dimensional little number line or one-dimensional little number line and then making it two-dimensional. And a lot of really strange things happen. I'm trying to think of ways to describe it without making it too technical.
I don't think you really can. Well, or at least it's very difficult to do unless you have like years of training into this subject where you really totally and completely understand absolutely everything that's going on.
And
it kind of takes that level of understanding of a subject before you can actually explain it to people who have no idea of the subject, and that's who you're talking to right now.
Yeah. My focus is statistics as well, so I don't delve way too deep into mathematical theory. I do a little bit of analysis, which is basically like going into functions and analyzing how they work, which is kind of one really important thing when it comes to the complex plane, because if you have a function that you know is defined on like the real numbers, when you switch it to the complex numbers can do a lot of different things. Imagine just, a function when you have like x and y, those two dimensions, how it makes a line. Imagine that line is your real number line, and then if you extend that to the complex number line, it doesn't necessarily have to behave like anything we see on just like the real number line. It can start doing like loop-to-loops in complex space and things like that.
Before you start straining yourself to try and make sure that at the very least I can understand what you're talking about, allow me to point out I have a friend who is currently studying for his master's in basic mathematical theory of all different sorts so that he can become a math teacher in high school. And he's tried to explain similar things to me before. And he's trained to be a teacher of these things. And there's no way I can get it.
Okay.
So
it would probably be a lot easier if I had a visual aid, but I don't. And I'm really tired.
Visual aids do tend to help, and he's just trying to explain it to me like through text. So like I can read it over and over again. I'm not gonna understand it.
Yeah.
Unless I see a demonstration of what exactly is going on. It's just one of my weak fields is math, especially since I think my first year in college I took placement tests, and they immediately put me into advanced calculus, and I had only taken like pre-calc before. So I looked at that. First day I came in, I looked at the board, and the guy's writing down equations, and I'm like, I'm going to fail.
Yeah, that's not good.
It was not a good time for me. So to get a little bit back on topic. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
For anybody who is not in the know of what's going on right now, new viewers, that kind of stuff. So Gary Edwards made a video called A Tale of Two Definitions, in which he said that a lack of belief in God, the standard layman definition of atheism that's been thrown around on YouTube a lot for a long time now, is simply inadequate in order to define what an atheist is. Because, in his opinion, you can't legitimately be called an atheist unless you have some sort of reasoning faculties that leads you to your position. So he redefines atheism as basically, to put it in simpler terms, a person is an atheist only if they've reasoned to the notion that the probability of God's existence is less than 0.5 or 50%. Now, Bionic Dance hates this, and I think everyone should probably know why, unless you're new to YouTube, because she's had this argument many times in the past. And one of the main reasons that she's against this is because she wants to be able to call things that are absurd to call atheists, atheists, like rocks and babies, and, as she says in her response to him, everything else in the universe.
She wants an army of everything.
She wants to outnumber the theists, I think.
Using inanimate objects.
Atoms are atheists.
Atoms are atheists
Win.
until they all together form a theist. In which case only the atoms within the brain are the theist atoms. Apparently, I'm not quite sure how that starts.
Each individual atom is still atheist.
That gets into the theory of consciousness.
When you combine them, yeah.
So Bionic Dance made this video today. But here is the comments that she made on his video 3 days to 1 day ago. Starting off, she says, "Nope, still unconvinced. For starters, you're assuming that having an attitude is necessary without giving a scrap of justification for why beyond your personal preferences." Well, he does explain why in the video, mainly because it's absurd to call a rock an atheist. We don't refer to rocks as atheists. We don't refer to anything other than reasoning creatures as atheists. Second, this isn't an equation, it's a scale, one that starts at 0, which represents no God belief. If someone's belief level is 0 or less than 0, so I guess -1, -2, -3 goes on forever, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works.
Less representing those who actively oppose the idea of a God, then that person is an atheist, specifically because of how much belief they don't have.
Wait, okay.
Yeah, probabilities. If you get a probability in the negative or greater than 1, you done fucked up really hard.
Yeah, there's a problem.
Oh, okay, I know that it's probably going to feed into her, maybe even her philosophy. But basically, I don't know. Are any former theists?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I believe I count as one.
You are. Okay, well, I'm still a theist. So stone me as you would like.
Never.
But
Throw my cigarettes at you.
Yeah. Cigarettes.
Seriously,
All
give
I
me
have
bourbon.
to throw is like a bottle of water with no cap, so.
I'll throw a glass at you.
Okay. So, anyway, the reason why I bring this up is that even the stones know my name is a thing in Christianity, because basically everything in the world, every being, every, I don't know, thing created upon the land. Sorry if it sounds weird because my dishwasher is going. But every being upon the land knows my name and believes in me. Is a kind of an ideology by many Christians. Okay, so the reason why I don't think her position is complete. Ouch! I just pricked my finger. The reason why I don't think her position is complete crap, right? By saying that rocks are theists or atheists and carpets are atheists and blah blah blah, is because a lot of theists think anything created by God is a theist. So she's basically taking the theist ideology and making it atheist. So anything anything upon the earth does not have the ability of having a logical thought in its head.
This is interesting because that seems to me to imply a sort of dualistic nature, just to nature itself. Which is generally something that I believe atheists are, in general anyway, not pro. Very.
I am not saying it's an atheist ideology. What I am saying,
I know.
It is an often spouted Christian short-sighted ideology. Basically, the zebras and the giraffes will bow before them, knowing that he is God, that Jesus, it's kind of like a second coming kind of thing where everything will know that Jesus has come, blah, 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 right?
Yeah, but under that ideology, doesn't that also make atheists theists?
It does. That's the thing. That's the thing with the Christian ideology that everything will know that God has, or that Jesus has come again, right? And they will know that they have chosen the wrong path, right? So they've known that they've chosen the wrong path, and they will see that the error of their ways has doomed them to a never-ending hellfire, blah blah blah. Right?
So we don't get saved, even though we realized our mistake. Awesome.
Right. And that's what a lot of like doomsday, second coming people. What would they be? It would be. What would they be? So we even talked about this before in 1990 when I was in Bible school. Basically, the people who believed in the second coming, but only the rapture would come after. It was really weird. I'm sorry, I can't think of the word. It was silly, as if the rapture, you would have the rapture, and then there would be the 7th-day retribution, or 7-year retribution, where you would be punished, blah blah blah, and if you repented in the retribution, then you would be taken up. There was a lot of conjecture in the 1990s. It was basically make you shit your pants.
The whole thing sounds very conjecture to me.
Yeah.
Well, of course it is conjecture. It's religion. And this is coming from... I'm sorry, but this is coming from someone who's religious.
I know, that's why I find it funny. Like, that sounded like a very atheistic comment to make. Of course it's conjecture, it's religion.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's someone who believes in God, who doesn't necessarily believe in a lot of the religion that's out there for today. If you know anything about the religion that's in the world of today, it's a lot of very similar bullcrap. You know? Very similar bullcrap. You still believe in a higher power, but it's all about how you get to that higher power. And it's like, yeah, but we've got the right Kool-Aid. We've got great Kool-Aid, and that cherry Kool-Aid people are bad.
Oh, Sky Cake, why must you be so delicious? Sorry, for anybody who doesn't know, there's a Patton Oswalt sketch that you all have to look at some point, called Sky Cake. Possibly one of the greatest comedy sketches about religion anywhere. Fuck George Carlin. Fuck like everyone else. Sky Cake. It's just fantastic.
Patton Oswalt is inherently better because he's not as bitter and like mean. Patton Oswalt is actually still pretty nice.
Well, he is. In fact, he actually starts off that sketch by going, "I'm an atheist and I love religion." And I don't mean that in a very sarcastic, very mean-spirited way. I mean, I really love religion, because if it wasn't for religion, we wouldn't be here right now.
Right. And the thing with George Carlin is, later on in his years, he became very bitter and mean and just like foolhardy and just so curmudgeonly. You know what I mean?
I think he was starting to get senile toward the end there.
He's also a bit of a conspiracy kook toward the end as well.
Yeah, like he just went kind of off the rails a little bit.
Yeah, that's how he is.
Yeah.
So I had to like leave that conversation for a minute because my cat was going ape shit on my bed, apparently attacking a nickel. So I missed out on some of that. Fucking this little bitch is extremely weird. But
It's a cat. I mean,
It's so cute.
She's a mean little cute little kitty. I swear, about 5 minutes, she's gonna bite my hand because I'm petting her for too long. That's what's gonna happen. She's gonna start growling at me.
I would, if I had a webcam, I'd show my cat. He's like, I have 2 cats. One's 26 pounds, one's 31 pounds.
You got some fat-ass cats.
They are very fat. They're, like, huge, too. Like, even if they weren't fat, they would be big cats, but they're fucking, like, they're like the 6'6" person who's, like, 500 pounds each. Like, that's just how they are, but in cat form.
All right. So, let's move on here. So the third point that Bionic Dance makes in her comments, atheists have no burden of proof unless they start making assertions about God's existence versus their belief or lack thereof in deities. So here's another reason why I think she's very much invested in this conversation. She doesn't want to have a burden of proof. She's very insistent on not having to demonstrate anything. I think that's a main reason why she's against this definition.
Do you think she could demonstrate anything? We're talking about Bionic Dance.
I think that's why she doesn't want to have to, because she knows she can't.
Yeah, she couldn't. She couldn't.
The thing with Bionic Dance is what I'm sure you both are getting to, is that she is not good at proving anything she's ever said ever. And you know what? That's a thing. People who are religious, and I have come to understand this as someone who is religious, is that the burden of proof is upon one who postulates something does exist, because you can't prove something doesn't. You know what I mean?
You can give sufficient reasons as to why something doesn't.
Oh, sure, blah, blah, blah. You can give sufficient reasoning as to why something doesn't exist, like, I don't know, ghost poop, right? So you can give,
clearly, ghosts don't have digestive tracts because they don't exist in the biological realm. Therefore, they don't poop. Therefore, ghost poop.
That's the thing, though. When it comes to, it took me a long time to understand, to acquiesce to the idea that, you know, people who believe in God, people who believe in Jesus must provide the proof. But, right, but you also must give a person the ability to provide the burden of proof. When you, I don't know, okay, so say Jesus is a real person and, you know, really existed. Okay, there's a problem proving someone historically actually existed, because pre-18, not a 17 even, 50, the common folk didn't really have a way of proving they existed at all, because they didn't have any nobility or importance or real.
They weren't writing stuff down, doing letters and stuff, because a lot of them were just like, I don't even know how to write.
Right, and that's the problem. Like, okay, Lundy, prove your great-great-grandfather existed, other than you're here.
We actually have diaries.
I could check Ancestry.com and see if they've got anything.
My family actually has diaries dating back to like 1640 something, like that have been like handed down. It's actually really fascinating. Well, I can't read a lot of them because they're not all in English, but
yeah, I can only track my family. So as far as I bothered tracking them, I can only track them to about 1900.
Yeah, within the centuries, at least. Once you get out to that, it's really complicated.
I don't know if my family owned slaves, is what I'm saying.
My family, like, I know about a bit of my family. I know that at least part of my family, the namesake of my last name, fought in the northern part of the Civil War against slavery, and that makes me really happy. But here's the thing: my family's a mutt, right? I am Norwegian, German, Czech, Scottish, Irish, Luxembourgian. The thing is, because of the lack of information of a female side of the story, who knows what my female fathers, the fathers of the female parts of my lineage, what they did. So say my grandmother's father's name is Gordon, which it is. It's my Scottish lineage is Gordon. But who knows what they did when they got to the United States? Maybe they joined a neo-Nazi party, and we just don't have that because it's through the female side of my history, and most of the history is tracked through the male part of my lineage. The Christians were part of the Minnesota fight against slavery. The Hans Christian fought for the Minnesota Civil War, and that's great. But who knows what the rest of my family did? We only know about that one part. And that's one of the problems with tracking American histories. A lot of them changed their last names. It's very difficult to figure out who came from where. And for God's sakes, there are still people now whose families, 85, 90-year-old great-grandfathers are charged with crimes against humanity because their family or they had something to do with World War II. They had something to do with the SS. So it's really difficult to track that stuff through history because of changing names, because of lost histories.
All right. This is great because I was planning on just doing like a little fucking bullshit session about stupid shit Bionic Dan says, and it's turning into also an educational session. So it's great.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm
sorry, Lundy.
It's no need to apologize. I said it's good.
Yeah. So I'll see you guys later.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Let's move on here. Next thing that she says to Gary. This is where I think the doublethink starts to really come into play. That last one and the first are really the crux, aren't they? What I'm hearing from you is that you think atheism should only apply if someone has an explicit attitude towards the topic. You're not describing a condition or a state, you're describing a position, which is not what the word atheist describes at all. Now, here, just stopping for a second, it's weird that she says this, because, firstly, you can be in the condition or state of having a position. So the two are not mutually exclusive. I don't know why she made that differentiation, but she did, and I don't feel that it was justified. And when she says this is not what the word atheist describes at all, this is basically just her opinion. It's not she doesn't explain why it doesn't describe that. She doesn't explain why it should mean blah at that point. She just says that's not what it means because reasons. She goes on to say, if you think it does, then what word describes all those with or without God belief and which is used that way, and I'm emphasizing these words because she did with italics, modified by adjectives and prefixes to describe the entire spectrum of possibilities with regard to belief in gods in order to facilitate communication. Because theist gets that job done. Modify it with an A and you negate God belief. Modify either with a strong or explicit or implicit or soft, etc., and you describe different types, different flavors of belief or non-belief in gods. So here's the thing. Gary's does that. It explicitly does that in the definition he gives by putting belief, or rather doxastic attitudes, towards G, God, on a scale of 0 to 1. 0.5 being the middle, and less than 0.5 being atheist, and above 0.5 being theist. Now, you can, according to this definition, you can be anywhere between 0 and 0.5 so long as you're below 0.5. Like, I don't... It does that. You don't have to add strong, you don't have to add explicit, you don't have to add implicit, you don't have to add soft. None of that's required. This definition gets all that job done without adding any of these words. So she wants something that does it simply, yet describes her preferred method, which is far more complex, and then at the same time apparently doesn't think that his accomplishes any of the sort. It's very strange. It's very dissonant, and I don't... It's very strange. Okay. Your opposition to this seems quite clearly to be more social or political or whatever you want to call it than it is linguistic or descriptive. It's like you're not talking about a word so much as a title. Atheist seems to you to be more on the order of a God-related Mr. or Miss than it does a descriptive adjective or noun. That whole paragraph both infuriates and confuses the shit out of me. Because firstly, clearly her position on this is political. Like, I don't think anybody is going to argue that that's not the case. She clearly has a political bent on this. That's why she's so vociferously saying that it must mean a certain thing. Secondly, titles and words, and titles are descriptive terms. So when you're saying that you're talking about a title instead of a descriptive adjective, you're saying you're choosing between a title, a descriptive adjective, and a descriptive adjective. So that's kind of how you can tell. She has no idea what she's talking about. She's just pulling shit out of her ass.
Dunning-Kruger effect.
So going down a little bit, because it's like this fucking comment thread is like 87 comments.
Well, we can go to her. We can go to Gary. Gary.
That's what I'm doing. I'm going straight down to Gary. Yeah. It's just Gary between BD. I don't give a shit about all the rest. So Gary responds by saying, A, I'm not convinced that the term atheist applies to non-agents. That's why I think having a propositional attitude of some kind is necessary. B, I'm not convinced that a scale that starts on 0 and then goes into minus figures is a useful measurement of belief.
Yeah.
C, I'm not convinced that I am without obligation when it comes to justifying my belief that the existence of God is unlikely.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to agree to disagree. Fairly measured response, and I think the main thing to focus on is that first part. I'm not convinced that the term atheist applies to non-agents. So this is sort of like an atheist versus theist conversation when it comes to the justification as to the definition, which is very strange. It's very meta, because Gary is saying that Bionic Dance is making the positive claim that the word must apply to non-agents, and that he's not convinced that it must. Whereas Bionic Dance is telling him that he's saying the word must not apply to non-agents. So, depending on how you word this, one person has to convince the other. Or at least abandon the argument at some point. So, Bionic Dance responds to the first part by saying, I think that it does apply to non-agents. I think the term applies to any subject that does not qualify as atheist. Any subject. A subject. I don't know what she means by that.
I guess, obviously, she's trying to. By subject, she obviously means like, you know, the rocks and planets and shit like that. She's probably just confusing words there.
Like, if she can say object, if she meant that would make sense.
She probably meant object. We'll just give it the benefit of the doubt that she meant object.
Because when she says subject, it can easily be misconstrued to mean, okay, so by subject you mean things in which subjective natures come from, which would require cognitive capability.
Yeah.
So you agree with him? But again, she doesn't know what words mean, even though she uses the dictionary, like, religiously.
Yeah.
Having a propositional attitude of some kind be necessary implies that there are creatures or things out there with no God belief, which are so radically different from other creatures or things with no God belief that they need an entirely separate word, despite that unifying characteristic of God belief being absent, and that's just silly. So apparently it's silly to say that there's a difference between a human being and a rock. I think that's silly. But I guess that's just my opinion.
There's no difference between you and the fucking keyboard right in front of you.
There's no difference between my empty can of Monster and the sun. There's no difference
between your refrigerator and your cat.
They both, at the very least, don't believe in God.
Exactly.
So there you go.
As far as you know.
As far as I know, for all I know, there is a dualistic nature to my Monster can that I'm not aware of that is sitting there going, "Be a Christian, bitch." I don't know. But I'm not going to delve into empty Monster can psychology.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel that I'm qualified to do that, nor is anyone else. So she quotes him saying that he's not convinced that a scale that starts on 0 and goes into negative numbers is a useful measurement of belief. And she asks, why not? It's basically what you've been describing. If 0 is no belief and 1 is believing, then why wouldn't negative numbers be an act of denial or opposition to belief in a deity? How on earth is that not useful? Well, because when you allow a scale to go into negative numbers, you've established that there's no lower limit to your scale.
It goes, it's infinite, yeah.
So, in essence, it's entirely useless because how do we determine where on the scale you are? If you can go from -1 to -3,600,532, what exactly level of non-belief is that? I don't know what that is.
Like the most extreme type of non-belief you can have?
Well, clearly not, because it can also go to like -5 trillion and something. Like I don't.
What if it's 6 quadrillion something? How much of a believer are you at that point? Unless it goes from 1 to only negatives.
And if the negative numbers get to go on ad infinitum, then why can't the positive numbers go on ad infinitum? I think going from 0 to 1 and limiting all belief within that spectrum is a lot more useful because it's a lot more precise. That's why, BD. Like, how that went over her head, like, that is a very simple concept. A very simple concept.
Even if, like, you just
that is basic probability figuring. Yeah. Like, I suck at math, and I can understand why that's more useful.
That's like, what, 4th grade, 3rd grade right there? Go over timeline and shit?
But Lundy, you are making assumptions that she can easily understand logical concepts. And that's the thing, she can't. Because if you see how she handles any sort of metaphor, any simile, any sort of easy English equivalency, she can't. She can't understand that. And that's a thing. It's like she has a complete disconnect between non-concrete things. And even though you may see something as concrete, she doesn't, because she doesn't get logic as a thing. the thingitude of logic completely bypasses her brain functionality. And that's something that a lot of people need to realize. She just doesn't get what most people would get as the thing. A thing is a concrete thing, as a carpet is a carpet. She doesn't get. It's not something that's in her grasp.
I really think that there needs to be some sort of... I think, speaking of doxastic logic and the capability of belief, I think she would be a very interesting case study in figuring out what level of believer that she is and what exactly her model of understanding is. I really do. I think that would probably get somebody a fairly interesting thesis. Just to say, the model of a semi-popular D-list atheist on YouTube. I think it would be a very interesting thing, because I can't nail it down. Because her beliefs just seem to shift to whatever is convenient to her, and I don't know what how one classifies that.
That's the thing, though. That's the thing. That's a very Thunderfooty thing,
Yeah.
right? It's a very Thunderfooty thing in that whatever it is that he, she, it is against is the bad thing, and it's not necessarily something you can you can say, oh, that's bad, or oh, that's good, because it is the thing that he, she, it is against. And it changes from day to day, from controversy to controversy. The thing that he, she, it is against is a thing, if that makes any sense. That is
it does. I mean, I've seen other attitudes, not just in Thunderfoot, but also in people like War Corpse, for instance.
Yeah.
Will do the same thing, where he'll, within the span of a singular video, he'll say one thing and understand a topic in one way that is convenient towards whatever he's arguing at the time, and then he'll make an argument later on that entirely negates what he said earlier, within the span of a singular video. Like,
that's what I'm saying. It's the thing, quotations and capital letters that he, she, it is against is always different, but it's always concrete and terrible. And we must always think that the thing that he, she, it is against is the worst thing that it is possible to be against.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So she quotes him saying, I'm not convinced that I am without obligation when it comes to justifying my belief that the existence of God is unlikely. And she says, well, maybe you aren't, but you are not the single sole and absolute example of atheism of which all must adhere. If there are those to whom atheists can apply without any kind of explicit declaration or even considering the prospect, they have nothing to justify because the absence of any belief is passive. Well, here's the thing about that. There doesn't exist a person who speaks about atheism to any degree who has not in some way come to the conclusion that God's existence is less than 5 if they consider themselves an atheist. Less than 0.5, sorry. So BD matches the definition that Gary gave. And so does every other atheist on YouTube.
I mean, as far as I've been, like, in the whole atheist discussion, it's, as far as I can recall, it's always been said that to be an agnostic atheist, thus, between 0.5 and 0 or so, is the more intellectually honest position. Like,
yeah, and I can totally agree with that, depending on your definition of God, anyway. But like, so I have a friend of mine who is like, I would call him a spiritualist. He's very much into these very vague notions of duality and psychokinesis, that kind of stuff. And he also believes in a sort of deistic form of God. Now, I can't disprove this deistic, very vague starter God of all things, because he doesn't define it in any way that is inherently contradictory or anything like that. So I have no problem saying I don't know whether or not that God exists. I don't personally believe that he does, and I don't believe that. I do believe that the probability is less than 0.5, just based off of the fact that previous evidences towards the possibilities of supernatural entities or supernatural solutions to problems or things in the real world do tend to follow a certain pattern. That being that to the best of my knowledge, there has never been a mystery that has been solved by applying supernatural belief to it. That's to the best of my knowledge. So following that pattern, I do believe that it's not unjustified to say that God's probably not a thing. That's at least my perspective on that. And I think that a lot of people probably follow a similar reasoning path, but they probably don't know that they do, or at the very least they don't vocalize that they do. I don't know if I'm alone in that, though. My cigarette went out. So let's see. There are those who go further than saying that they just don't believe, but who explicitly state their conviction that God does not exist. They certainly have more to justify than someone who thinks that a theist claims doesn't hold water. That theist claims don't hold water. Sorry. Okay, so on the scale that Gary gave, that would be the difference between somebody who's 0.49 and somebody who's like 0.1 or 0.01 or even 0. So I don't see what any of this has to do, how this like negates the given definition, and I don't understand how this negates what he said in that he does not believe that an atheist is entirely without obligation to justifying their belief that the existence of God is at the very least unlikely. Because what she's talking about is somebody who is a Gnostic atheist towards all gods, and somebody who's an agnostic atheist towards at least some gods. And I have no problem differentiating between the two using Gary's definition, and at the same time, it's just very strange to me, because, all right, she gives the two examples. But Gary's not a person who says that he knows for a fact that no gods exist. And yet he still believes that he has an obligation to his belief in unlikeliness of God's existence. So clearly he believes that both of these individuals have an obligation of justification in their epistemic reasoning.
Yeah.
So she's not talking about something that he disagrees with. But she just says that one doesn't have a justification, or rather an obligation, and one does.
Yeah, she's just asserting these positions onto him that she's pretty much throwing at him.
Yeah, and
to make him an enemy, pretty much. She's making purposely this enemy by putting positions onto him
for her to do. It's just basically say you're saying this because you want X to be a thing. Even though he says outright why he wants the definition to change. And, of course, she disagrees with that reasoning, but for no given actual substantial reason. Then she quotes him saying, "So we are going to have to agree to disagree." And she says, "Oh, I really don't think so. I think..." Brace yourselves for this one.
Yeah.
Brace. I think you're clinging to archaic and biased definitions is going to fail as the atheist movement grows.
Oh, God.
And then she says, I think we're going to have to agree that your defeat is inevitable. Okay, so who the fuck is the one going with archaic definitions when every time this conversation comes up, she always brings up Atheos, the original Greek reference towards those who don't believe in a god. Who the fuck is clinging to archaic definitions here, VD? That she projects at 1080p. Holy shit.
God damn it, Bionic Dan, stop running on automatic.
So this whole response is greeted by Gary by basically linking a singular video, which is the opening title screen to an old show called Dad's Army.
Want to play it?
Yes, I think I'm going to play it. Skip that.
Who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler? If you think we're on the run, we are the boys who stop your little game. We are the boys who will make you think again. 'Cause who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler? If you think only you understand. Mr. Brown goes off to town on the A21, but he comes home each evening and he's ready with his gun. So who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler? If you think only you understand.
So basically, he's telling Bionic Dan, who the fuck do you think you're kidding?
Basically, and he also kind of called her Hitler. Which I will say that she's being very fascistic with her intentions here.
Yeah.
Especially since she's saying that his defeat is inevitable. Your defeat is inevitable. I am right and you are wrong, and that will always be the case.
Resistance is futile.
So apropos was that reference that I just busted out laughing. I just could not take it. That was
so let's go to some of her other responses, because people are like kind of trying to explain to her like what Gary's position is and his reasoning, you know, for didactic attitude and using the 0.5 scale. And for instance, Goddard's in response to someone called Goddard's journal, he asked why negative numbers, and she explains. I think I explained rather well already. Negative numbers are there to represent those who actively oppose the idea of having beliefs in gods, as opposed to those who only lack it. 0. Like that
doesn't explain it at all. Like I understand that. I understand the basic premise behind what she's saying.
Yeah.
But she doesn't understand why that is absurd and why that can be extrapolated to absurd degrees, because of the virtue of the fact that she's essentially created a limitless scale of non-belief, which, by her own reasoning, that there is basically only 2 different kinds of non-belief, that being those who simply don't believe and those who believe not.
Yeah.
She's basically said that these are the 2 positions at this point, and yet she has this infinite scale of non-belief beyond 0. And also, it doesn't seem to reference the negation, which would be the positive, which is very strange to conceive of, a negation being a positive, being more than 1. Like, apparently her belief in belief is that it just stops at 1. You just believe.
yeah. You either just believe or you have this vast quantity of non-belief. It's one or the other.
Like, those are the only 2 options, apparently.
Well, let's see. Okay. Isn't your definition of atheism the same as Gary's? No, his definition excludes non-believers that should be included.
Who?
That's just, yeah.
She doesn't specify who. Which non-believers?
Like the Buddhists, like Buddhists who don't necessarily believe in a god, perhaps, like something like that. I'm not really sure what you're trying to get at there. That's a sticking point, truly. His insistence on having a diastic attitude to qualify is what I disagree with. No, but that's the point. That's what. No.
Why? So basically, his insistence that you have to be a thinking agent in order to be called an atheist sufficiently is what she disagrees with. Here's the thing: she never really explains why.
Yeah, just because. It's just because.
Throughout her entire video that she makes towards him, and throughout this entire comment section, she never explains why it is necessary that non-thinking things be able to be referred to as atheists. Aside from they match her predisposition towards the definition that she likes. So they must be included as atheists because that's what I define atheists as. That's basically her justification as to why rocks should be called atheists.
Well, someone called her out like claiming rocks are atheists is complete bullshit. She's like, no, it isn't. You just don't like it. Like,
I will agree that to a degree, one of the reasons why I think it's stupid is because I don't like it. But there's a reason why I don't like it. This isn't arbitrary, it's just not something I like. It's the fact that we don't refer to them as atheists in everyday conversation. When you refer to someone who's an atheist, what comes to mind? You're thinking of a person. You're thinking of a thinking being who has identified as an atheist in some way or another. You think Richard Dawkins, you think Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, somebody who is a person. That's who comes to mind when you think of the word atheist. So clearly, nobody is looking at a rock and going, hey, look, an atheist. No one's doing that.
yeah.
That's why it's absurd. That's why it doesn't match how we use words. That's why linguistically it's stupid. This isn't just an arbitrary, it makes me uncomfortable shit. It's just basic usage of words. That's how words are defined, by how we use them.
Yeah.
Like
when pressed on, she pretty much just says, "Go fuck yourself." Like, rocks are atheists just because. If you don't like it, go fuck yourself. I don't care.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, when somebody responds to her saying, "No, it isn't. You just don't like it," they say, "Yes, it is. You just don't understand why." And the response is, "No, asshole. I do understand why. And if you're going to keep insisting that I don't, you can go right ahead and go fuck yourself." So here's another problem with her sort of epistemic position on this. She keeps claiming that she understands what the argument is, and yet every single time she tries to make a response to it, she demonstrates that she doesn't. Also, one of the last things I'm going to point out, throughout this comment section, it's explained to her, and then she registers that she understands that when Gary is referring to a doxastic attitude, that thing right there is him specifying that it must be a thinking creature that is capable of reasoning to the position of God's probability being less than 0.5. She makes that statement. She quotes that statement and then says, I understand that statement. And she even argues against that statement. In her video, she declares that his definition doesn't specify who is doing the non-belief, who is doing the less than 0.5 stuff. She explicitly says the exact opposite of what she claims to understand in this comment section.
When asked, like, why don't you agree with this? Because I don't think it's necessary. Like, I understand it, and I understand why you put it there. I just don't think it's necessary. It's like, then.
So within 24 hours, at the very least, she has entirely forgotten that she understands this concept, and now believes that the concept means the exact opposite. This is why I'm always overjoyed whenever Bionic Dance engages with her betters.
Yeah.
Because she consistently demonstrates herself to not understand jack shit.
Remember the whole terrorism thing back during the Boston bombing, and she made that video saying, "Oh, this is terrorism." Wait, no, this is not terrorism. Don't jump to don't jump.
It's not terrorism until we know the motive.
Yeah. And then you know Rob makes like 3 videos toward her, which she never watches because she hates Rob and will never fuck that guy. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and he goes over the several definitions given by the FBI, CIA, and other other government agencies, France and shit like that. NATO.
And also very explicitly says, even if we go with your reasoning here that we're not allowed to call it a terroristic action until we know the motives, here's the thing. Sometimes the media is not going to know the motives before the government. In fact, most of the time they're not. So when the government says it's a terroristic action, chances are good they know the motive before we do. Like, even just going by her strict, non-sourced standards, she's still wrong. So, yeah.
Hey, you know what the best part too was when she, I think it was the ex-director of the FBI or the CIA went on Rachel Maddow's show, and they said something to the illusion that it may kind of sort of maybe premature to say anything about terrorism at this point. And she went up in arms like, "Oh, see, I love you, Rachel Maddow. She agrees with me, thus I'm right." It's like, well, hold on there. Don't you jump to conclusions just yet.
All right. So, how long have we been going here? Where am I?
An hour and 20 minutes.
Okay, I think that's long enough to talk
All
about
right.
this.
Yeah.
Especially since I don't plan on talking about this ever again. After this, I will probably watch if Gary makes a video towards her, because I'll find that even more lulzy.
Yeah.
But that's about it. This is the most attention I'm giving her right now, and that's only because I haven't talked about her for a long ass time on this channel, and because she's doing something that I find personally very funny.
Because you're into philosophy and is supposed into philosophy, and she's failing in philosophy and logic.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that she was engaging in analytical philosophy, I immediately went, "Ah, this is fucking great." That's basically the thought that went in my head. That very gay-sounding laugh and saying this is great. That's what happened in my head.
You're gay.
I'm bi, so I'm allowed to be. I'm gonna hold my cigarette like this because that's the most effeminate way I can do it, and no one can judge me. So let's see.
Well, you're a homophobe.
The main points essentially that she says is that atheism means this because I say it means this, and it must include things that apply to my definition because they apply to my definition. Those are her arguments, and that's her main thesis. It's circularity in its finest fashion.
And like someone mentioned in the comments, when she stated in a hangout a couple of months ago that apparently rocks must be considered atheists because of it, because one day we might find out if they're sentient. Like rocks might be sentient at some point. So just be there just in case.
It would be the best thing if we did find out that rocks are sentient one day, and then we also found out that they're all Scientologists.
Yes.
Planets
could be sentient. Couldn't that make them gods, thus pantheism?
Good.
Fucking hell, Bannock Dance. Good going.
All right, so that's going to be this hangout then. Thank you to Xavier for having joined us earlier. Thank you, Sammy, for joining us. And you're also welcome, Abby, for providing a place for you to do a little bit of bullshitting during your board times.
Yes.
All right.
To do dishes, but
Sayonara, everybody.
Bye-bye.